Hello, everyone. I'm Stephen Stoneberg, the COO and CFO for Bittrex Global, and the host of our video AMA today. I'm live from Bittrex Global's new offices in Bermuda, where I'm joined virtually by one of the teams contributing to Celo, which recently listed on Bittrex Global. With us today is Alex Witt, the head of finance at cLabs, and Pranay Mohan, protocol product manager at cLabs, to discuss their great project Celo. And thanks, guys, for partnering with Bittrex Global. I'm very excited to be talking to you today. If you haven't heard, until November 16th, we've actually launched no fee trading on Celo Dollar to encourage people to buy Celo Dollar on Bittrex Global and then transfer it to their Valora app so they can send remittances to their friends and families easily. But we'll talk more about that later. So again, gentlemen, Alex, Pranay, thanks for joining the AMA today and for partnering with Bittrex Global.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Great to be here.
Thank you.
So
It's a pleasure.
We've sourced a few questions from the Bittrex Global and the crypto communities regarding Celo Dollar's listing. So let's jump right into it. So the first question from the community. Firstly, can you tell us a little about yourselves, your backgrounds, and the community behind Celo?
Sure. I'll start first, and then Pranay can jump in. I started my career in traditional finance at Goldman Sachs, but I quickly kind of became disillusioned by some of the systemic inequalities in the current financial system. So I started an equity crowd investing platform, but then I saw blockchain as kind of this super powerful tool in our toolbox now that could be used for kind of accelerating positive change towards financial inclusion. And Celo for me is really an extension of that, basically leveraging a mobile-first blockchain-enabled solution to really deliver on the promise of financial inclusion that blockchain can deliver.
Yeah, so my background is in software engineering, and over the years I made my way into product. I'm Bitcoin class of 2013. I bought a little bit of Bitcoin in that initial run-up in 2013, and my only regret is that I didn't get it fully at the time, and it wasn't until 2018 when I helped a friend organize a conference about crypto and blockchain that I truly understood the power of this technology. And at that conference, I met some really brilliant people in the space and saw the work being done on all these projects that was starting to get a lot of momentum. And that's what kind of got me to fall in the rabbit hole, start digging a little bit deeper. And I just jumped right in and went full time in crypto. And I found out about Celo in 2019 when the incentivized testnet was happening. And that was a great opportunity, the great Celo stakeoff, for technical folks to kind of test the protocol in the earlier stages before mainnet and contribute to the security by running a validator. And I was just blown away by the developer experience. The tools were best of class, and I was just impressed by the work that the Celo team had done. And furthermore, the mission really resonated. And so it kind of had that 1-2 punch that Alex was talking about, where you have this generational technology that can really improve a lot of people's lives with a community and a group of folks oriented around a mission that had a real use case. And so that was it, sealed the deal, and I jumped right in.
Great. And Alex, like you, I jumped I used to be in financial services, most recently at Goldman, so I jumped out of that as well. I agree. Blockchain is where it's at. So before we get into Celo, tell us your views on cryptocurrency. What impact do you think it's going to have in the world?
You want to take it again, Alex?
Okay, I can start again. So for me, I mean, cryptocurrencies are the technology behind them, blockchain, is really potentially kind of the internet of value. So kind of what the internet did for information, I think blockchain can do for value transfer. So just as easy as you can send an email for almost free now. In the future, there's really no reason why anybody with a mobile phone can't send a payment for near free, just as we do with emails now. And of course, blockchain is enabling programmatic money. which enables a whole host of new use cases that we can't even predict now. So I'm very excited for the future potential.
Yeah, 100% the same. I wouldn't be working in this space and contributing all my time if I wasn't super bullish about the potential of this technology. And similar to Alex, I use that analogy as well. So like last night, I had a virtual birthday party with a friend, and given all the recent price action, I got that inevitable question we all get, which is, should I buy crypto now? And I stay away from that question. Like, I do not answer that, and I focus on the technology aspect, where a good analogy I use is similar to what Alex mentioned about email. If you were to do email by writing a letter, scanning it, uploading it, and then sending it to somebody else, that highlights how absurd a lot of the ways we've done fintech are. So a lot of the payment rails and finance rails are from a pre-internet world that we've kind of ported or adapted to work with software and the internet. And so if we were to re-envision what finance would look like in an internet native way, I'm pretty sure it would look a lot like crypto. And so I think that technology, that first principles approach, is really important to understanding the impact this can have in the world.
I agree. So we, as an exchange, we have no view on the direction of markets, but we got, I think the price run up certainly is validating of blockchain in the community, and it doesn't hurt. Plus, all these sort of institutional hedge fund players talking it up doesn't hurt the validation of the space. But I agree, we have no view on the direction. So, thanks for that. And maybe if you could just tell us a bit more about Celo, the platform, and how that sort of fits into the space.
Sure. Yeah, Celo is a mobile-first proof-of-stake platform that's focused on building financial tools for everyone, and it's currently powered by two asset platform, the Celo native asset and Celo dollars, or cUSD, which is a DeFi stable asset that follows the US dollar. In the future, there will be kind of additional currencies beyond kind of USD stable assets. But for now, it's the Celo dollars and that Celo native asset.
And maybe to give a bit more of a protocol context and the history of Celo is that Celo is originally a fork of Get, which is the Go Ethereum client in the Ethereum world. But it has two kind of main innovations that enable the stable value assets that Alex was talking about. One is a switch to proof of stake from proof of work, and the other is a native stability mechanism. So the protocol has a reserve that allows the dynamic increase or contraction of the supply of the Celo stable assets, and that makes it very simple to have a crypto-backed reserve that also gives a price stable token.
Great. So you already jumped ahead sort of to my next question, which is the Celo dollar. But maybe you can explain. Obviously there's other stable coins out there. Obviously Tether is very famous. What are you trying to solve with Celo dollar that's not being solved by the other stable coins that are out there now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I think about the Celo dollar, I think the unique thing is that it's designed to be used and be in the hands of the 6 billion and growing mobile phone users in the world. So right now, if we look at the other stablecoins, they're primarily used by fairly crypto native users and for use cases like hedging trades or DeFi. But what that kind of leads to is that the user interface is not super easy. So you have to know these complex cryptographic addresses. Acquiring the stablecoins is quite challenging. And with Celo dollars, we anticipate the usage by people around the world in everyday use cases like paying a friend, saving in stable value, investing, or lending to a friend, gifting. And for these things, we need to reduce the usability barrier. And Celo has a fantastic lightweight identity protocol that makes it super easy to map phone numbers to addresses. So instead of remembering your friend's public key or address, you just remember their phone number and you can send it to them like you would on a Venmo. And so this kind of usability barrier, being able to onboard using the mobile app, allows the stablecoin to be used by more people beyond just the kind of the current users in the world.
Great. Alex,
I
you
agree.
Okay, you agree. Okay,
No, I agree. I mean, I guess I would say,
I'm glad you agree. That would be problematic if you didn't.
I would say you brought up Tether. Compared to say a Tether where you are still reliant on that sort of key intermediary, that key center party to maintain the reserves. With the case of cUSD and Celo, we're 100% on the blockchain, 100% programmatic. You can see our kind of reserves anytime, anywhere. So we take that element of trust out of it, and so we kind of have a unique value proposition relative to what's currently available.
Great. And so thanks for that. And what would you tell, the traders on Bittrex Global? What should they know, not just specifically about Celo Dollar, but just the Celo platform in general that they may not, in terms of from a trader's perspective?
Yeah, for sure. So for Celo Dollars, as I was kind of starting to touch on, the stability peg is maintained by an algorithmic stabilization mechanism, which offers arbitrage opportunities between Celo's on-chain automated market maker, which we affectionately refer to as CP Dodo, Dodo being direct one-to-one, and exchanges like Bittrex. So, for all the traders out there, arbitrage is the holy grail, riskless profit. And so because of that stability peg, there are effectively potentially arbitrage opportunities. And we designed this stability mechanism for traders so that there were these tighter arbitrage loops relative to, say, a make or die. And that's why we put in place a Hummingbot, which links into Bittrex and other exchanges to lower the barrier to create arbitrage bots. And so I think that kind of is a really unique aspect to the Celo stability protocol. And also, obviously, we are very unique in how decentralized we are and how mission-driven we are.
Do you have anything to add, Pranay, or did you pretty much cover
it? Alex is the guy that knows traders. I'm more the...
Okay, of course, coming from Goldman. So in terms of so you mentioned briefly in the beginning the Valora app. So do you want to maybe talk about that a bit and how that fits in with Celo?
Yeah, happy to jump into that. So we kind of touched upon it when we were talking about the usability aspects. And as we know, like a lot of people in emerging markets are coming on board to the internet, not on PCs or desktops, but on mobile phones. So like, as I mentioned earlier, 6 billion people have phones, and they're all using things like WhatsApp, Instagram, and they're becoming native internet users. So for these folks, Valora is kind of like a global payment solution, like a Venmo or an M-Pesa, that is not restricted to any geographic boundary. And the value in this is that if we look out to 15 or 20 years from now and we ask where is crypto going to be, if we're still using public keys and talking about proof of work, proof of stake, I don't think we would have had the impact that we can have. And that's because for average people to use crypto, they should not need to know about crypto in the same way that you or I could exchange WhatsApp messages without knowing about IP addresses or how the guts of the internet work. Crypto will get there. And we see Valora as like the first step in that progress, in that march to being super usable. And as I mentioned earlier, it has a lightweight identity protocol. It's easily downloadable on your phone. You can try it out by going to Google Play Store or Apple App Store. And so we want to make it super usable. And if you all have any feedback, if you download Valora and tell us about your experience and tell us if it makes your life easier in transacting with your friends and family, that goes a long way. And we know there's a lot of work ahead, but this is how big the potential can be for crypto.
I agree. The sky's the limit. But you mentioned looking forward. So the next, which fits in with the next question, sort of, which is the community wants to know, what is your vision for Celo Dollar in 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. So I mean, in 5 years, our vision is that Celo and Celo Dollars are improving the lives of frankly billions of people by providing access to a stable asset on an alternative platform to to traditional financial infrastructure, which, as I mentioned earlier, is inaccessible to many people around the world. And this enables use cases for anyone with a mobile phone for things like remittances or store of value, payments. And we've already seen kind of successful signs of this with our partnership with the Grameen Foundation and multiple kind of ongoing pilots, as well as with the Valora app that Pranay mentioned, which by the way, as a plug, you can try today.
Okay, we will. We encourage everyone listening to try it. And then you sort of also, Kyle, legging into the next question, which is you mentioned some of the foundations, but the other question is what major partnerships with other projects or companies in the near future do you have planned? So is there anything that we should be looking for? And by the way, I think 10 years out is like 100 years in crypto, so that's kind of a silly. It should just be 5 years is enough. But so what other partnerships do you have in the next sort of few foreseeable?
Yeah, well, tell me about it. I tell my friends that we age like dogs in the space because every year is worth 7, and definitely feeling that. But in terms of like the Celo community, I mentioned earlier the validator community. If you hop on Discord, you can see this very robust and collaborative validator group. And so there are a lot of these different communities emerging in Celo that kind of coalesce around their use case. And one example of this is the Celo Alliance, which is a group of over 110 organizations, which includes for-profits, not-for-profits, NGOs, that are all kind of uniting around this mission to create the conditions of prosperity across the world. And 2 examples of groups in the space are Grameen Foundation and Beam and Go. And Alex briefly touched upon this, but I want to call it out because I think it highlights like a fantastic success in Celo, which is that we recently finished a closed beta where families in the Philippines that were affected by COVID were able to receive aid using Valora and Celo dollars. And the big takeaway here is that these families, these beneficiaries, did not need to know about crypto. Like they're the farthest from crypto native users, but they were able to exchange value and receive value in a time of need seamlessly. And so Celo is open to anybody to contribute. It's an open ecosystem. Everything is open source, and any organizations or groups that are passionate about this mission, compelled to help kind of improve the financial structures across the world, can jump in right away. You can visit the GitHub, you can join on Discord, and there are a million avenues to contribute.
Great. So I think the next question you can probably each answer separately. So, what's your view on the latest hot crypto subject, DeFi, which we could go on for hours, but Alex, why don't you start first, and then I want to hear what Pranay has to say as well.
Okay, sure. I can start first. I think, I think it's a little bit hyped up at the moment. Prices have obviously, increased very significantly, but like many kind of hype cycles, that there is substance behind it. And we are seeing, finally kind of the premier use case, at least in the immediate term, starting to emerge around financial inclusion. I think some of the big trends you see right now are kind of around liquidity pools and automated market makers, but I think we're going to move significantly beyond that very soon. And one thing I would mention is most of those DeFi applications have to date largely happened on Ethereum, but we're now seeing a lot of Ethereum developers and projects come over to Celo because we have significantly lower transaction fees, and we're built from the ground up for, frankly speaking, what we now call DeFi. So and in addition, we're ERC20 compatible, so that kind of transition is super easy. So as Pranay mentioned earlier, between the fact that you can pay your transaction fees in the local native currency, as opposed to having Ethereum to pay the gas and then transferring another currency, and the fact that you can have this phone number mapping, along with extremely low transaction fees and 5-second block times, you really have a strong foundation for all sorts of DeFi applications, including those we can't even predict now going forward.
Great. Pranay, do you want to add anything to that, or?
Yeah, my turn. Yeah, so I'm not a yam or a sushi farmer, but I do see value in DeFi, kind of like what Alex was saying, because like there's this saying that toys are precursors to serious things, and we kind of see that with DeFi, where at the heart of it, what's happening is people want access to open and permissionless financial tools, and a lot of people across the world are gated from the financial services they can access simply based on where they live. And that is neither intentional nor just. And so we see DeFi as kind of like, people are talking about DeFi now in its current incarnation, but Celo's focus from the beginning has been giving people access to financial services. And so when we look at a Compound or Open, we see the beginnings of like a money market platform or an options platform. And these are valuable, useful things to normal people in the world. So while the more speculative kind of yam, hot dog, pizza, sushi stuff is happening on Ethereum, it's kind of like people are excited about this and they get a bit carried away, but there's a kernel of truth there. And I'm personally excited to see how it matures over the next 5 to 10 years, because I really think that these things will become more sophisticated and, more importantly, user-friendly. So kind of bringing it back in the context of Celo, if you have a mobile app that's in the hands of billions of people across the world, it becomes that much easier to give them access to a savings vehicle via DeFi. So I'm bullish. I'm excited for what's ahead. But again, I'm not taking part in the day-to-day.
Great. So thanks for sharing your views on that. And our last question, and I think it's interesting. So by definition, your project has a lot of sort of charitable aspects and sort of facilitating payments and the lesser developed places. But a lot of token teams have been explicitly giving back to the crypto community. Are there any, in various ways, does Celo have any plans to give back to the crypto community other than sort of what you're doing just in the way the project's set up?
Yeah, I can start. So Celo, obviously, firstly, is an open source project that belongs to the community from day one. And the mainnet was launched by a fully permissionless validator set across 19 countries. And it continues to this day to be run by 100 validators all over the world. And so, from day one, it's been kind of community driven. And Pranay can speak more to this, but the developers across the world are, including projects like Impact Market, who is looking at things like UBI and Pesa-based, are building on Celo and knowing that the platform is governed by the community, and that's, frankly speaking, a huge kind of draw for many. And as such, when you think about giving back, it's kind of inherent from day one into how Celo has been designed. And so we continue to look at kind of avenues for developers and entrepreneurs building on Celo to receive funding, including Celo Foundation grants and the community fund. So there's a pool of grants. We're now on wave 3. Anyone interested should apply for grants in the future. And there's also an on-chain fund. And so about 25% of all of the block rewards are related to an on-chain community fund that is only governed by Celo asset holders. So the Celo native asset holders can determine the allocation of that on-chain fund. And of course, because it's on-chain, everybody can have full auditability of where those funds go. One kind of really neat aspect is, one thing the community voted on is to have 0.5% of those, total block rewards go to effectively a carbon neutral fund. And at the moment, we're actually carbon negative. That sounds negative, but it's meant in a positive way.
That's very good, actually.
Yeah, a positive net impact. So those are some of the ways in which we're kind of designed to be for the community and continuing to try to give back.
Great.
Yeah, and I can add a little bit more. Alex covered most of it, but yeah, the wave 3 of the grants program is open until November 20th. And if you go online and search for it, you'll find a call for proposals. And this includes different examples or ideas that could be funded by the Celo Foundation grants, including developer tools, protocol research, DeFi projects. So if you have a cool idea and you're trying to decide how to get funding, how to bootstrap the work on it, there are avenues in the Celo ecosystem to do so. And we're just excited to see what people build out there.
Absolutely. One final note I would say is we are completely transparent around how the Celo native asset is distributed. And so if you go to the Celo kind of Medium page, you'll see kind of a circulating supply article that breaks down the different buckets. So very transparent on kind of how those funds are set up to be allocated at the moment.
Great. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Alex and Pranay, on this really interesting video AMA. I think we've all learned a lot about Celo and Celo dollars. It's always great to chat with token teams, entrepreneurs that are really using crypto to make people's lives better, which clearly Celo is doing. So if our listeners or Bittrex Global customers want to learn more about Celo, please go to celo.org. That's celo.org. And to learn more about the Valora app, please visit valoraapp.com. That's VALORAAPP.com, or search for it in the Google Play or Apple App Store. So thanks again, Alex and Pranay. Thanks to all the listeners, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks for the opportunity. Talk soon.
Thanks, Stephen.
Pleasure.